My next guest joining me to talk about a case that you may or may not have heard about last week. As people are busy during the holiday season, you may have missed this news. The Oregon Court of Appeals ruled against Aaron and Melissa Klein, the bakers who were fined about $135,000. They eventually they lost their business, lost their livelihood, all because they did not want to bake a cake for a gay wedding. And joining us to talk about this case and the ramifications from it, Jeremy Dice, Deputy General Counsel with First Liberty, the First Liberty Institute, representing the couple here. And Jeremy, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you coming on. This is just another one of those cases that we've seen really around the country where people who have a religious reason why they don't want to be involved in a gay wedding are quite frankly discriminated against, correct?
Yeah, well, the question really turns on whether or not we're going to permit the state to force individuals to compromise their religious convictions, or more pointedly, whether we're going to permit the state, the government, to force individuals to violate their convictions in doing their business. The First Amendment has long protected artistic expression and various other forms of conviction that religious individuals have, and the state really cannot force its citizens to create a government-sponsored message. That's what this case is about. That's what the case of Jack Phillips, as we saw last month at the Supreme Court of the United States, that's what these cases are trying to settle out, whether the government is going to be permitted to force its citizens to create and carry a government-sponsored, a government-approved message.
And, okay, so tell us a little bit about this case in particular in Oregon. Is it similar to what we saw in Colorado where there were other cakes available for purchase? What was going on here?
Yeah, it is similar. In fact, Aaron and Melissa had served the mother of this couple previously, or I guess this couple indirectly through the mother or to the mother. It was her birthday, and so they came in and they purchased some baked goods for the mother's birthday celebration, and they had no problem with that, and they certainly had no problem with selling other products off the shelf to individuals of any stripe. So when it came to the time when they came in to purchase a wedding cake, Aaron sat down and asked the name for the bride and the groom and was informed that there was no groom, and he politely declined the business and explained that his convictions wouldn't allow him to continue that business. And that resulted in a complaint with the Bureau of Labor and Industry in Oregon. Eventually, the administrative law judge found them guilty of having violated the state's laws on public accommodations. They penalized Aaron and Melissa $135,000 for this act of simply abiding by the religious convictions. And ever since then, Aaron and Melissa. Oh, and I also should mention that the BOLI, the Bureau of Labor and Industry, asserted a gag order on them that required them not to talk about this issue, this case, or whether or not they would conduct this type of business in the future. And so they really trounced all over the First Amendment and had that in place until last week when the Oregon Court of Appeals, a 3-judge panel, upheld the decision of BOLI except for that gag order. So now I guess they have at least part of the First Amendment back at their disposal, but we're waiting to see whether or not the Oregon Supreme Court or other courts may fully protect them in their ability to be able to live out their business under the First Amendment.
I just don't see how anyone has a right to a cake. You understand where I'm going? Like, I just don't understand. Well, if I'm a business owner and somebody comes in, why can't you just turn them away and say, I decline your business?
Well, look, I think we all recognize that we are in a new society right now, and since the Supreme Court's decision on Obergefell that validated same-sex marriage, I guess that issue may be settled, at least for the time being. But we got to remember that the Supreme Court, Justice Kennedy, in writing that opinion, even remarked that it's important that we allow people of religious beliefs to have this open and searching debate as to their religious liberty, to allow those in religion and those who adhere to religious doctrine, I'm quoting now from the opinion, to continue to advocate with utmost sincere convictions as to the merits of their religious beliefs. That's the space that we're trying to protect right now.
Right.
And I think we should be able to live peaceably peacefully as neighbors, even though we have different beliefs and opinions with one another. We ought to be allowed to do that, and especially for those in the creative industry, whether they are bakers or otherwise. We ought to afford them the protections that the First Amendment has long protected. I'm aware that the ACLU has on their website today a whole page talking about protection of the freedom of expression. And they say, and I'm quoting, freedom of expression for ourselves requires freedom of expression for others. I agree with that, and I would hope that the ACLU would come to the defense of Aaron and Melissa Klein, along with Jack Phillips and many others who are simply trying to be faithful to their convictions and operate in this society, even though they may have the minority opinion when it comes to issues of human sexuality.
If the Supreme Court comes back and rules against the baker in Colorado, and let's say in future court, because I think y'all's goal is to take this to to obviously to a higher court. If y'all are ruled against, and the Kleins are ruled against, and they're told basically you have to bake a cake, you have to participate in all weddings. What does that mean going forward, not only for bakers, but also for just anybody in any business that may be associated with weddings or celebrations or whatever else you want to call it?
Yeah, well, look, I think we can stay within just putting out some hypotheticals within the world of baking a cake. If that all goes the way that you just suggested, would this require then the government to be able to force an African-American baker to create a cake for a Klan rally? What about a baker who is a survivor of the Holocaust? Is that individual going to have to bake a cake for a Nazi rally? If you want to make it a little bit more lighthearted, does a liberal baker have to bake a cake for Trump's inauguration this time or the one in the future? Look, we have long fought against in this country is giving the government any type of permission that would force its citizens, that would allow the government to force its citizens to carry a government-approved message. The First Amendment has long protected and has long meant that Americans can live in a society that protects both diversity of thought and belief. We ought to be very tolerant of a variety of beliefs, including those with which we disagree. That is the core essence of what it means to be American.
Visiting with Jeremy Dice, Deputy General Counsel with First Liberty. Jeremy, tell folks, this is obviously not the first case that y'all have handled. Tell folks about First Liberty and what all y'all do.
Yeah, First Liberty is a religious liberty law firm that handles defends religious liberty for all Americans across the country. So we handle cases out of like California, where we're representing an Orthodox Jewish synagogue, and it's a 3,000-year-old tradition called Kippuros. It's a ceremony that involves a chicken around Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah that animal rights activists don't like. We're defending them in court. Or it's like the public school teacher that we represented up in Maine, who was told not to tell a colleague at work that she was praying for him, even though she went to church with the colleague. So there's a variety of other cases that we work on throughout the entire country. I invite folks to go learn all about it at firstliberty.org.
Jeremy, I appreciate your time today, and let's visit in the future about this and other cases, okay?
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. That's Jeremy Dice, Deputy General Counsel, First Liberty. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO.